Day gamers. Today, the player controller and animation. Let's go. Okay, so this one's going to be a little bit different. So for our enemy controller, we created the animations, we created the animation controller, we then adopted the code that would then reference that animation controller and played different animations based upon what was happening. This one's a bit different. So the player basically is going to have all of his animations provided for him. Okay, so if we go ahead and this will differ depending on which flavor you're going with for this, like Ducko, Ruby, or the Marshmallow Man. But we're going to go ahead here to again for me, I'm a 100% a Ducko fan. So I'm going to go to my assets folder. At the very top, there's a folder called animation, and I'm going to go into my good friend. Hey, Ducko, how we doing? And we see here there is an animation controller for the player already. So if we go ahead to our player character and we go ahead, we're going to just drag and drop this animation controller here. Quick tour. We've got here, if we double click on play the animation controller, we got a lot more stuff going on here. So we're going to look at our default state when the game starts, is going to be the idle animation. Okay, so that's going to be sort of like, just sort of like chilling. We think of a character in a game. Like if you're not actively moving, what is that character going to be doing? We don't want to just be stuck and frozen. So we want to have an idle animation. And then we have here these arrows and lines that are basically governing how they're going to transition from one state to another. So, and if you look, probably for you, you have to click on the parameters tab here. The parameters we're going to use to like go from idle to moving or idle to hit or eventually shoot, the parameters we have here are speed, look X, look Y, and then hit and launch. Now, look X and look Y, pretty should be sort of somewhat familiar to you in terms of like what we did with the enemy controller. We wanted, the enemy controller basically said, am I going to the right or am I going to the left? Am I going up or am I going down? In this case here, we as a player like can move diagonally, we can move to the right, we can move up, left, and we can also not move. This is going to differ, from the enemy. The enemies are always moving, so the enemies are going to be either marching right or left or up or down. In this case here, the player might just be chilling. Okay, so we need to keep track of more stuff. Okay. The other thing, I'm only going to really talk about hit because that's what we're going to be working with. Hit is only going to is basically a trigger, and if we actually click on one of these, we can see in terms of like what are the different things that are going to govern how and when we transition out of one animation state to another. So we're going to see here like hit is going to be like kind of interrupt everything and just immediately play a hit animation. So, anyways, I'm going to have all of the code in Schoology. So if you want to go ahead at this point and just go to the player controller after lesson 23, you can just copy and paste that. But I'm going to go ahead and just walk you through what this different code does. I'm actually going to grab it myself. And then what I'll do is I will just discuss what exactly is going on. Okay, cool. So let's go ahead and start at the top because okay, so we have here, we've got, I put in a comment, animation stuff, which is a great comment. We have here, just as we did with our enemy controller, we need to go ahead and have a variable that's going to be associated with an animator type component. And so this will be like, put a pin in that, we're coming back later. Move direction. Now, this is kind of this. I actually did a little bit of research on this one just because I'm coming from a background in Python and Java. So here, this was new to me, like in terms of like what we're doing here. So a vector2 type of variable, okay, called move direction. If we want to give it an initial value, we need to use here keyword new. Keyword new is going to go ahead and allow you to give that vector2 you're associating with the variable move direction an initial value. In this case, we want the player to start off with the initial kind of like animate directions of having him go to the right. So we want like when the game starts, we want to give an initial value to pass along to the animation controller so that we so it knows what to do. All right. That's it as far as the stuff in our like kind of preamble. We have then in our I'm just cleaning this up a little bit. We then just as we did in our enemy controller when the game starts, go ahead and associate the variable animator with the animator component that is attached to our player character. On update, now this is where things get a little bit crazy. Okay, we've got here. I'm just again cleaning this up. Ugh. Anyways, we are all we're doing here, this is like a ton of code. This code is basically saying if the value of move X or move Y is greater than 0, do something. Okay, so this is, I know it's a lot, but this is just basically saying if it's bigger than 0, do something. In this case, then, if either of these statements are true, if the movement along the y-axis or the x-axis, that's what this or symbol is. If either of that is true, execute this code. Okay, and so yeah, so this is going to be here. This is going to set it so that it is either a one. You're dealing with floating point numbers, sometimes you run into some issues where the math gets a bit wonky when it comes to extremely large decimal places. Anyways, we then looking at this should ring a bell in terms of what we did with our enemy controller. We've got a animator dot set float. So before with the enemy controller, when we'd worked with the blend tree, in this case here, we're sending it to the our animation controller that we already have built in. And this is going to pass that look X, look Y, and speed information along. The other thing we have is under change health. Under change health, we've got all the stuff related to invincibility, changing the variables, changing the GUI, but then we have here animation dot set trigger and hit. This is how we actually get to be able to have whatever's happening kind of like take a pause and immediately play that hit animation. Okay, and so then when we go into Unity, let's check out like what this looks like in practice. All right, we go here to game, and there we go. So we've got right, left, up, down, and idle. So with idle, you can see here like it's not that exciting. Like it's just chilling, but at least it's that. And then hit is going to interrupt. Like you notice, run animation, and then there's that hit. So, anyways, I wish you the best of luck. Great stuff.